The rhythm of scrubbing cars had replaced the rhythm of his routines on the pommel horse 30 years ago, but in his dreams, Viktor Vic Petrov still felt the perfect balance of strength, grace, and precision that had once made him one of the most promising gymnasts in the world. Vic, 67, sat in the fourth row of the Tonight Show studio, his gymnast posture automatically straight while his powerful forearms moved in unconscious parallel bar motions as he watched the show. The small premium auto wash 30-year service patch on his work shirt caught the studio lights as he shifted in his seat with the fluid movement of someone whose body had been trained for maximum efficiency and control. To the thousands of customers who had watched Vic meticulously detail their cars over 3 decades, he was just another hardworking immigrant who somehow moved with unusual grace and had an athlete's attention to perfection in every task. What they didn't know was that they were having their vehicles cleaned by a man who had once been zero point 0.2 points away from representing the Soviet Union at the 1984 Olympics. What Vic didn't know was that his story had been quietly circulating among gymnastics coaching communities after someone had posted a grainy video of the car wash guy, who still does perfect muscle-ups on the equipment rack during breaks. The footage had been shared among former Olympic coaches who recognized the unmistakable form and technique of elite-level training, leading to whispers about the lost Soviet gymnast working at a car wash in New Jersey. Vic's story had begun in the rigid training halls of the Soviet gymnastics system, where young athletes were identified early and molded into champions through years of disciplined preparation. Born in Ukraine to parents who worked in a textile factory, Vic had shown exceptional coordination and fearlessness as a child, qualities that caught the attention of scouts who recruited promising athletes for state-sponsored training programs. By age 12, Vic had been selected for the Elite Gymnastics Academy in Kiev, where he'd trained under legendary coach Dmitry Volkov. The regiment had been brutal but transformative. 8 hours of daily training that developed not just physical strength and flexibility, but the mental toughness required to perform complex routines under intense pressure. Vic's specialties were the pommel horse and parallel bars, events that required the kind of upper body strength and technical precision that separated good gymnasts from great ones. Through his teenage years, Vic had dominated Soviet junior competitions and earned selection to the national team that competed internationally. His routines combined the technical difficulty that Soviet gymnastics was known for with an artistic flair that made even routine exercises look effortless. By 1983, he was ranked among the top 5 gymnasts in the world and considered a lock for the 1984 Soviet Olympic team. The 1984 Olympic trials had been held in Moscow just weeks before the Los Angeles Games. Vic had trained for this moment his entire life, perfecting routines that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible on each apparatus. In the final competition that would determine the Olympic team, Vic had performed flawlessly on 5 of 6 events, leading the field and virtually assured of his Olympic spot. But during his final routine on the parallel bars, his strongest event, disaster had struck. Attempting a release move that would become his signature, Vic had slightly misjudged his grip position on the landing. The fall had resulted in a torn rotator cuff and dislocated shoulder that ended not just his Olympic hopes, but his entire competitive career. He'd finished 4th overall, missing the Olympic team by 0.2 points that might as well have been 20. The injury had been career-ending in an era when sports medicine couldn't repair the kind of damage Vic had sustained. At 19, after 7 years of elite training, he'd been forced to retire from the sport that had defined his entire identity. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Vic had immigrated to America, settling in New Jersey, where he'd found work that utilized his strong work ethic, if not his athletic talents. The car wash job had been temporary work while Vic learned English and figured out how to build a life in America. But 30 years later, he discovered unexpected satisfaction in applying the same attention to detail and pursuit of perfection that had made him a champion gymnast to the art of automotive care. The Tonight Show tickets had been a surprise retirement gift from the car wash's owner, who had watched Vic work with dedication and precision for 3 decades and wanted to honor the man who had made their business reputation for quality and reliability. It was a Thursday night taping in December, and Jimmy was in good spirits after interviewing an Olympic gymnast about the upcoming Winter Games. During his commercial break interaction with the audience, his attention was drawn to Vic by his perfect posture and the way he moved with an athlete's unconscious grace. Sir, you have incredible posture. Do you have a background in athletics or dance? Dick straightened with the automatic response of someone who had spent years being coached on body position and presentation. I used to do gymnastics, sir, long time ago, in old country. Now I work at car wash 30 years next month. A warm murmur went through the nearby audience members. Gymnastics was one of the most demanding sports, and 30 years of honest work deserved recognition. Gymnastics? What level did you compete at? Vic's face showed a mixture of pride and old pain. International level, competed for Soviet Union in 1980s, trained for Olympics, but injury, ended career before Los Angeles Games in 1984. The casual mention of Olympic-level gymnastics caused a ripple through the audience. Olympic gymnasts represented the absolute pinnacle of athletic achievement. You trained for the Olympics? Vic, that's incredible. What events did you specialize in? Pommel horse and parallel bars mostly, also floor exercise rings. In Soviet system, you train on all apparatus, but those were my strongest events. Jamie's curiosity was immediately piqued. The Soviet gymnastics program had produced some of the greatest athletes in Olympic history, and someone who had trained at that level represented extraordinary athletic accomplishment. Jimmy made a decision that would change everything. Vic, Olympic level gymnastics is elite athletics. Would you mind coming down here and telling us about your training and competition? Vic looked uncertain. Oh, I don't think people want to hear about old gymnastics stories. That was different time, different life. Trust me, people definitely want to hear about Olympic training. Come on down. As Vic made her way to the stage with the controlled movement of someone whose body had been trained for maximum efficiency, his bearing transformed completely. The confident presence of someone who had once competed against the world's best athletes. When he reached the stage, Jimmy guided him to a comfortable chair. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy announced, this is Viktor Petrov. For 30 years, he's been working at Premium Auto Wash in New Jersey, but before that, he was an elite gymnast who trained for the 1984 Olympics. Vic, tell us about your gymnastics career. Vic settled into the chair, and when he spoke about gymnastics, his voice took on the intensity and precision of someone who had dedicated his life to athletic perfection. I trained at Elite Academy in Kiev from age 12 to 19. Soviet gymnastics system was very demanding. 8 hours training every day, plus conditioning, flexibility, mental preparation. Goal was always Olympics to represent your country at highest level. The audience was completely quiet, understanding they were hearing about one of the world's most rigorous athletic programs. What was your training like? Vic's expression grew more animated as he recalled his athletic prime. Very structured, very intense, morning conditioning, apparatus work, routine practice, evening flexibility. Soviet coaches believed in perfect technique. Every movement must be precise, controlled, artistic. No shortcuts, no compromises. You mentioned you were close to making the Olympic team. What happened? Vic's voice grew quieter, reliving a moment that had changed his entire life trajectory. 1984, Olympic trials in Moscow, just weeks before Los Angeles Games. I was leading after 5 events, virtually certain to make team, but on parallel bars, my strongest event, I attempted difficult release move and misjudged landing, tore rotator cuff, dislocated shoulder, finished 4th, missed Olympic team by 0.2 of point. The studio was mesmerized by Vic's precise recollection of a moment that had ended his Olympic dreams. 0.2 of a point, that's incredibly close. In gymnastics, 0.2 might as well be 2 points. Difference between Olympic team and going home is often measured in hundredths. I was so close. I could taste Olympic rings. Jimmy reached behind his chair and pulled out a tablet loaded with gymnastics records and Soviet sports history. Vic, we did some research before tonight's show. He showed Vic archived competition results and rankings. According to International Gymnastics Federation records, Viktor Petrov was ranked 5th in the world on parallel bars in 1983 and held the Soviet national record on pommel horse Vic looked stunned. You found my old competition records? We did. Listen to this from Dmitry Volkov, your former coach. Viktor Petrov was the most naturally gifted gymnast I coached in 30 years. His combination of strength, artistry, and competitive spirit was extraordinary. His injury was tragic loss, not just for him, but for sport of gymnastics. The studio fell completely silent. The audience was processing that they were meeting someone who had been among the best in the world at one of the most demanding sports imaginable. Vic, what was it like having your Olympic dreams end so suddenly? Vic's expression grew more reflective. Devastating. For 7 years, every day was preparation for Olympics. Training, nutrition, mental conditioning, everything focused on representing Soviet Union in Los Angeles. When injury happened, it wasn't just end of competition, it was end of identity. How did you handle that transition? Very difficult. In Soviet system, athletes were supported, completely housing, training, medical care, everything provided. When career ended, that support disappeared. Had to learn new skills, new language, new country when I immigrated to America. Jimmy leaned forward, but you never completely left gymnastics, did you? Vic smiled for the first time since taking the stage. Gymnast's body remembers training forever. Even at car wash, I use parallel bar setup for pull-ups, stretch on equipment. Customers sometimes see me doing muscle-ups during breaks and wonder how car wash worker moves like athlete. Jimmy continued reading from the tablet. Vic, we found something else. Several gymnastics coaches have been trying to locate you. They want to offer you coaching positions working with young gymnasts. Coaching positions? Yes. Listen to this from the head coach at the Olympic Training Center. Viktor Petrov's technical knowledge and understanding of elite competition would be invaluable for developing next generation of American gymnasts. His experience at highest level is exactly what our program needs. So Jimmy stood and addressed the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, this man came within 0.2 of a point of representing the Soviet Union in the Olympics, then spent 30 years applying Olympic-level dedication to honest work in America. He turned back to Vic. The gymnastics community wants to honor you. USA Gymnastics wants to induct you into their International Athlete Hall of Fame. And several major gymnastics programs want to offer you coaching positions. Vic's eyes filled with tears. They want to honor me after all these years? They do, because Vic, just because you didn't get to compete in the Olympics doesn't mean your knowledge and experience aren't valuable. You understand what it takes to reach elite level. And that understanding could help American gymnasts achieve what you came so close to accomplishing. Jimmy had one more surprise. We have someone here who wanted to meet you. From backstage, Nadia Comaneci, the legendary Romanian gymnast and multiple Olympic gold medalist, appeared in her Team USA coaching attire. Victor, Nadia said, approaching with obvious respect, I competed against Soviet gymnasts during your era, and I remember watching your routines. Your technique was flawless, your artistry exceptional. You were one of the best gymnasts of our generation. Vic was openly crying now, overwhelmed by recognition from one of gymnastics' greatest champions. Do you remember my routines? I do. Your parallel bar routine at the 1983 World Championships was one of the most beautiful I ever witnessed. Gymnasts of our era had mutual respect. We knew how much sacrifice it took to reach that level. Jimmy sat back down beside Vic. Vic, you've spent 30 years thinking your gymnastics career ended in disappointment, but what you really accomplished was reaching a level that only a handful of people in human history have achieved. As they helped Vic back to his seat, he stopped and looked out at the audience one more time. Thank you, but I want young athletes to know setbacks don't define you, and training never goes to waste. Whether you're pursuing Olympic gold or washing cars, bring same dedication and pursuit of excellence to everything you do. The episode that aired became one of the most inspiring Tonight Show segments of the year, sparking conversations about immigration, athletic careers, and the value of applying elite-level dedication to any work. Vic's story inspired several Olympic training programs to actively recruit former elite international athletes as coaches, recognizing that near misses often produce the most effective teachers. The Viktor Petrov Gymnastics Fellowship was established to support immigrant athletes pursuing coaching careers in America. Vic accepted a coaching position and spent his retirement working with young gymnasts, discovering that leaving competition hadn't ended his contribution to the sport. It had prepared him to help others achieve the dreams he'd come so close to realizing himself. At 69, Vic still moves with a gymnast's grace, still believes that perfect technique is achievable in any endeavor, and still carries his Soviet team photo alongside his car wash employee ID, a reminder that true champions are defined not by medals won, but by the excellence and dedication they bring to every challenge in and out of the gym, because sometimes the most important victories aren't the ones that happen on the podium, but the ones that happen in ordinary places where extraordinary people continue to pursue perfection, one perfectly executed movement at a time.